The AYANEO 2S and Geek 1S campaign is now live. We now know the pricing, full specs, and features of each device. Today we're going to cover all the information that we learned from the just under 7-hour presentation that AYANEO did on May 29th, covering the AYANEO 2S and Geek 1S launch. We're going to cover what devices are coming out, what the prices are, what the differences are between the different devices, as well as some additional products that are going to be coming soon. Let's kick things off by covering what models were presented. So we have the main device, the AYANEO 2S, which AYANEO calls their flagship device. We also have the Geek 1S, which is their budget version that has a few features that have been changed, and also another variation of the Neo 2S that's going to be coming out later this year that features a mini LED screen as well as an Oculink connector. Let's go over the specs. We'll first start off with the shared specs between the Neo 2S and the Geek 1S. Both devices are running the 7840U APU. Both devices feature the new 3-tube copper heatsink with the graphene patches, which are claimed to drop the temperature by about 10 degrees Celsius, at least they did on the Neo 2. The shell is the same as the previous generation, so they're both going to be sporting the ergonomic style called the baby sleeping position. Both different SKUs also have the linear Hall effect triggers, as well as large Hall effect joysticks. For I/O, nothing really has changed here. We still have 3 USB-C ports. 2 of them are USB 4 and 1 is USB 3.2. We have a 3.5mm headphone jack, as well as a micro SD card slot with support for up to 300 megabytes per second. Both devices also feature a fingerprint sensor built into the power button, a 50.25 watt-hour battery, Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.2, and both ship with Windows 11 Home Edition. Both devices are going to ship with ISpace 2, which is built on a new underlying architecture, which apparently should address a lot of the issues that ISpace 1 had. ISpace 2 also comes with a new UI that AYANEO has described as more modern and minimalistic. We'll need to wait to learn more about ISpace 2. Moving over to the specs that differentiate the two devices, for the screen we have a 7-inch 1200p IPS display on the Neo 2S with 130% sRGB accuracy. For the Geek 1S, we have a 7-inch 800p display, and they don't mention what the sRGB rating is. For the controls, they describe the AYANEO 2S as having a master controller, and for the Geek, they just call it the Geek controller. I believe this is likely in reference to the gyroscope and vibration differences. The difference is that the Neo 2S has the HD linear motors, and the Geek 1S has the dual X-axis linear motors. I'm not 100% certain on what difference that presents. I'm guessing it's just more accurate vibrations on the Neo 2S. This is probably in reference to the sound tap magic that the Neo 2S has. And for the gyroscope, it seems that the Neo 2S just has a more accurate gyroscope. For the size, the devices are fairly similar, but the Neo 2S is 0.8mm thinner and the Geek 1S is 0.8mm taller. For weight, there's only a 5-gram difference, with the Neo 2S coming in at 667 grams and the Geek 1S at 672. And the last thing that differs is the configurations. So for the Geek 1S, you can get 16 gigabytes of RAM or 32 gigabytes of RAM and up to 2 terabytes of storage, where on the Neo 2S, you can get anywhere from 16 gigabytes of RAM up to 64 gigabytes, and you can get up to a 4 terabyte SSD. For color options, we have 5 different options for the Neo 2S and 3 for the Geek 1S. For the Neo 2S, we have Starry Black, Sky White, Retro Power, and B-Duck Pink and Blue, and B-Duck Joyful Black. And for the Geek 1S, we have Fantasy Black, Sky White, and Nebula Purple. Now that we've covered the specs and the differences between the two devices, let's take a look at the price and what options you can purchase. For the Neo 2S, we have several options, so I'm just going to skim through this section as there's way too many options to cover in depth. I'm also only going to focus on the early bird prices, as that's what's currently available at the time of recording. For the Neo 2S, we have the price range from $949 USD to up to $1599 USD for the top SKU. The options move up in increments of either $50, $100, or up to $200 if you're jumping up to the 64 gig model. It seems if you're looking for 64 gigabytes of RAM, you're going to need to choose one of the B-Duck editions. Looking at the AYANEO 2S prices, it seems that they're not responding to the ROG Ally price with their Neo 2S, but instead are going to be focusing on the Geek 1S as their competitor to the ROG Ally. why I say that is if you look at the Geek One S prices, the most affordable one is at $699 USD, and it matches the same specs as the ROG Ally with 16 gigabytes of RAM and a 512 gigabyte SSD. If you're wanting 32 gigabytes of RAM, you can pay an additional 100 USD and you'll get that alongside with the 512 gigabyte SSD. And if you want to max out your Geek One S, you can get a 2 terabyte 32 gigabytes of RAM version for $959 USD. So if you're interested in purchasing either the Neo 2S or the Geek One S, I recommend doing so quickly because these early bird prices won't last forever. So if you want one at the prices that I've talked about in this video, you're going to need to act soon. Moving on to the other announcements, AYANEO announced one other SKU of the Neo 2S that's coming out later this year, which will feature an Oculink connector as well as a micro LED screen. So we're going to need to wait for more information for the pricing and availability, but we should hear that sometime later this year. And one last announcement is that AYANEO is going to be releasing a mini PC shell for the 6800U boards. So I'm really glad to hear that they're offering this. This is going to be a great option for those that are going the route of upgrading their Neo 2 board to the new 7840 board through that upgrade kit that AYANEO has talked about offering later this year. It would have been a shame to see all of those old boards go to waste, so if we're able to take those old boards, place them inside the mini PC shell and utilize it as a second computer, like a little mini PC, it'll reduce e-waste and it'll make the upgrade process more that you're getting a second PC rather than just tossing out a perfectly good board. So I'm very happy to see this. I'll likely be upgrading my Neo 2 to the new board once the new kit arrives, and I'm likely going to go with this mini PC option. Of course, this is all depending on the price point. So we don't know those costs, and we should be getting some information closer to the time when those upgrade kits are going to land sometime later this year. I believe they said 3 months after the AYANEO 2S campaign. And before you go out and purchase the AYANEO 2S or Geek One S, just remember that there are some more SKUs that are coming this year from AYANEO. So there's the AYANEO Kun sometime later this year, as well as the AYANEO Slide, the AYANEO Pocket Air, which is an Android-based device, the AYANEO Flip, and the AYANEO Next 2. So it's going to be a very busy year for AYANEO, so let's see what's coming out next. Let's chat about this in the comments, or if you're in the Okayest Gamer Discord server, we can pick up the chat there. And don't forget, if you enjoy this video, do the Okayest thing and boop that like button. And if you're enjoying the channel, subscribe below. And that's it for this update, so let me know what you think of this new device. Is this something that you're going to be picking up? Are you more interested in upgrading your Neo 2 to the new board? Or are you going to be skipping this one altogether? And that's going to wrap it up for this one. Thanks for watching.